All eyes are still focused towards what the Chicago Bears are going to do in the draft. But before we even get to the draft, we have to go through free agency. And the Chicago Bears have quite a few players. They're going to have to make the decision whether they're going to have to cut or bring back. We're going to talk about some of those players. And we're also going to talk about two specific prospects in the Senior Bowl to look out for. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, Bears fans. So we know the Bears have a lot of room in the cap space to operate in free agency, which happens before the draft. And there's a lot of speculation going around who the Bears could look at to sign in free agency. We talked about one of those prospects yesterday in Diaby Payne and just what he could be if he even makes it to the free agent market. But before the Bears really even sign some players, they're going to have to take a look at some players they may have to remove from their roster and consider cutting in the 2023 offseason. And the first one up that we're going to talk about is Lucas Patrick. Lucas Patrick just was not able to be on the field much for the Chicago Bears. He only played in 7 games. He started 5 of that, and all 5 of those were outside of position. He could not stay healthy. He came over from the Green Bay Packers, and he did not really give the level of production that we expected. Now, again, he was looked at to be more of a top-tier acquisition at the time. 29 years old. He still has 1 year left on that two-year, $8 million contract that we signed him to last season. And the fact of the matter is, the Bears could look to keep Lucas Patrick just for depth. Keep in mind, too, I know Lucas Patrick was disappointing with his health and stuff. He was never able to be on the field in quite the way that the Chicago Bears hoped. Now, we do know that this Bears team, or we hope that this Bears team, is going to be drastically improving the offensive line in this offseason. Lucas Patrick could be somebody to stay around as a veteran presence who is a depth piece, but I don't know if they necessarily expect for him to play the heavy snaps for the Chicago Bears, and thus they could look to cut him, and there is a decision that Ryan Poles is going to have to make on Lucas Patrick. The next one up is Al-Quadin Muhammad. Now, this is a guy who kind of fell out of the rotation at some point. He finished he didn't really give much impact for the Chicago Bears, and it really, as we're trying to look to drastically improve that defensive line this offseason, you have to look at Al-Quadin Muhammad like, hey, is it a guy? He's 27 years old. He's scheduled to make $2.5 million, and he can be cut with only a $500,000 cap hit for the Chicago Bears going into next one. So because he doesn't have the production on his side, the Bears could look to cut him. Now, he did have 6 sacks and 13 QB hits with the Colts in 2021, but it didn't come over in any meaningful way for the Chicago Bears. He only registered a single sack in 16 games played. So it does not seem like the move of bringing in Al-Quadin Muhammad worked for the Chicago Bears. They could definitely look to cut him depending on some other things that they do to add some spots to this roster. The last one up that I want to talk about is Justin Jones. Now, again, new additions he's only 26 years old. He had 12 tackles for a loss, 7 QB hits, and 3 sacks in his first season with the Chicago Bears. But as we look to improve the defensive line overall, he could be a casualty of it. Now, he is a player that I would love to see stick around. But again, when you have a defensive line that was just overall just it was underwhelming. Let's just be clear. It was underwhelming. And so because the Chicago Bears could look to go after Javon Hargrave, Dalvin Tomlinson, Diaby Payne, Draymond Jones, those are the players they could look to go after in free agency. And so each one of those players as well is ranked in the top 20 of free agents by Pro Football Focus. We could look to move to move away from Justin Jones, to open up a spot, to add in those vets, and then on top of that, if we do end up drafting something on that defensive line as well. You guys let me know down below. Who are you thinking out of that group could be on the Chicago Bears roster next season, or do you think they all could be casualties as we go into it? Now, there are 2 prospects that I want to talk about. We're continuing kind of our draft coverage, and like I said, we're going to be throwing in some prospects to cover that we didn't cover in our top 5 list of each position going into it. And the first one I want to talk about is a edge out of Louisville. He's a senior. His name is Yaya Diaby. He's 6'4", 270 pounds. This is a guy who could be gotten in the mid to late draft for the Chicago Bears. He has huge strength. He's a great pass rusher. He is a little stiff at times. His IQ has been questioned in the draft prospects and analysis so far. He's also not great at run defense, but he is somebody who can offer a big body. He did have 9 sacks, 12 QB hits, 11 tackles for a loss, and 22 tackles overall. This is a guy that can play. And again, as you look at to get some of those quality picks lower in the draft, this is a guy who you could draft as an upside pick, a depth piece that could come in, not necessarily expecting to really be a huge part of that Bears offense. And keep in mind, defense. And keep in mind, we do also have Dominique Robinson and Travis Gibson as well already kind of on the edge and being those depth pieces. So it's something that the Bears could look to do, not necessarily saying that this is a player that I'm absolutely thinking that the Bears should go after, like the next player that I'm going to talk about. And shout out to Bobby as well, by the way. The co-host here, he brought up this kid. He was not on my radar before, Xavier Hutchinson. This is a wide receiver out of Iowa State, a senior, 6'3", 210 pounds. This guy, if you look at his tape and look, he has amazing body control, great route runner, amazing hands. He is going to catch some tough passes in the NFL level. You can expect to see that. Great production-wise as well. You look at 100 receptions for 1,171 yards and 10 touchdowns. He averages over 10 yards per reception. This is a guy, especially in that later round, in those later rounds of the draft, that if you bring him in, you can definitely maybe even see him on the practice squad at first, maybe not necessarily crack that rotation initially, but he is a guy that if the Bears are looking to add a wide receiver later in the draft that has some upside potential, this guy is it. His ability to be a vertical threat in the long term is a little bit questioned there. His explosiveness off the line isn't the best, but when you look at the way that he runs routes, the way that he has can catch contested passes on top of the body control that he has, and the fact that sometimes with all sports, you have to take the stats and a little bit kind of throw it away and just look at the guy's game. He has the ability to be a big playmaker on the NFL level, versatile receiver who can run on the inside and out. You can work him in the slot. So I'm really liking the potential of Xavier Hutchinson and what I'm seeing. And like I said, shout out to Bobby who brought this guy up and put the kid on my radar, because I'm looking at this guy now, especially playing in the Big 12. This is a guy who I would not be mad at all if the Bears do end up selecting. So be on the lookout for that. You may hear his name called in the later stages of the NFL draft by the Chicago Bears. You guys can let me know what you think about that down below. I'm also going over I know you guys have been putting forth prospects. I'm going to be going over and looking at those prospects as well. So keep bringing those in. Also, don't forget, you can also chip in on the mailbag episodes. We want you guys to be a part of the show. I'll tell you how you can do that here towards the end. Make sure you're following the show at Shy Bears Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and our voicemail for our Friday mailbag episodes to give your opinion on any draft prospects, free agents, anything going on with the Chicago Bears, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.